everyone, I'm Nettie Kaye. Welcome to my studio. Actually, this is my classroom at McCall College, so it's a little bit different, but we are going to make an attempt at painting some sunflowers in a beautiful blue vase. It's actually an ultramarine blue that we will begin the vase with, and we'll get started. We're going to paint it very loosely and as fast as we possibly can. Sometimes when we take our time, it gets overpainted and stiff. So I want to teach you how to loosen up. I want to teach myself how to loosen up. Let's face it. All right. Today on the palette I have a few colors. I hope I use all of them. We'll see. I have a Hansa Yellow Deep. I have a Transparent Orange by Gamblin. I think they're the only company that makes it. I have a Dioxazine Purple. What is this one? Oh, Quinacridone Violet. Love that one. This one's a little more blue-ish, and this is more reddish. This is a permanent orange. It's not a transparent orange. It's a regular orange. And this one here is a alizarin crimson. We have a little bit of ultramarine blue. We have some phthalo turquoise and some sap green. Now I can make sap green by using one of my blues with the transparent orange, but just to speed things up a bit today, I'm going to be using a sap green to help us along on our stems and a few things. And then I have a titanium white. Now I like titanium white and radiant white by Gamblin. That's a wonderful color as well, as far as just a nice heavy-bodied super white. This in the middle is a puddle of my medium, which is Neo Magelp. Look at this shoddy bottle. Whew. And I think this is about as big as they make it. This is a 16-ounce Neo Magelp by Gamblin, and it just happens to be my favorite medium at the time. I've been using it for several years and I really like it. But you can use whatever medium you like. Let's get started. I'm first going to move the still life around so that I can see it. This is kind of the picture that you're going to be seeing, so I'll refer back and forth to that a little bit with a photo. But meanwhile, I need to be able to see it in the same angle. So I'm going to move a few things around. I have a 16 by 20 toned canvas, meaning it just has a neutral, it almost looks a little bit like the background that we're working from. It just helps me to kind of be able to see my colors better and speeds things up a little bit. Now, as we begin, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find, with my ultramarine blue, I'm going to put the placement of where that jar is going to go, or the vase is going to go. And so I'm going to place it by making a mark as to where the top of the vase is going to be, and then possibly where the bottom of the vase will land. And then what I do is I'm going to take a vertical line and I go up and down, and this represents the middle of the vessel or the vase, so that I know that that's the center, and then I work my way out, rather than, like, you remember your third grade teacher when she said, draw a map of the United States or India or Italy, depending on where you're from. Draw a map of your country, and in the third grade, and we did this line around the outside, and if you were from the United States, it was, oh, you know, Maine ended up somewhere in Europe because it was all wonky. Well, we're going to avoid doing that outline and begin by massing in our shape. What does that mean? I've got a wider brush. This is about 3/4 of an inch wide, and it's a chisel. Doesn't matter if it's a chisel or not. You just want a wider brush. And I'm going to start at the top. You can start in the middle if you like, but start at the top and kind of decide how wide I want the top of my vase. And I've got a lot of medium on it, so it's going to be a bit dull. I don't care. I'm going to add more things to it. This is kind of the middle of the road, and then I'll begin to widen it out as it goes down towards the bottom. I'm going back and forth, and massing it in rather than trying to figure out what the shape is, because it's going to be off. It might be a little bit off even at this stage, but it will also help. And so I see it's got a bit of a belly down here at the bottom where it kind of sticks out, and then it comes back in as it comes to the bottom. And so I just begin to shape it this way. It's almost like you are sculpting rather than drawing a line, all right? It just gives you the whole thing right away, all right? Now the next thing I want to do is I'm not going to put the handle in, and I may not even at the end, depending on whether or not I like it. I might just make this just that particular vase. I'm now going to take my little paper towel or a rag. I'm using a Viva paper towel, not because they're my sponsors, they're not sponsoring me yet, but because they don't give off a lot of little, lint bunnies. And so I'm now going to erase out my area where my apple, my number 1 apple, is going to be. And I'm carefully looking to see how big that is. That's pretty good size. Might be too big, we'll see. Because this is actually smaller than life, so I better be a little bit careful there. And then I'm also going to do the little yellow or the red apple right here, okay? So there we are. There's just where it is. And then I may just take a tiny bit out right here because I know there's going to be a flower that's going to come in here. So I've got that going. That's how I'll start it. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to think about where the shadows are on my apples. And the shadow, I'm going to take a bit of a dioxazine purple, and oddly, I'm going to take some of the phthalo turquoise, dioxazine purple and phthalo turquoise, and we'll just see if I can find the bottom of, and that's really, really dark. I got to be careful. There's the bottom of that apple and the bottom of this apple, and then also I will shape out the bottom of my vase right here. Now I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. I'll lighten it up. You can see how it's lighter now, and begin to bring that shadow out a ways and shape out where the apple is going to go. It's just one way of approaching it. I like to, if I can, put the shadows in and then put whatever the object is in. Now, a lot of times when we're painting portraits, we want to paint the darkest darks first, and then we move ourselves up to the middle and then to the light. And so this is a little bit like that, but it just gives us instant feeling for almost three-dimensional. Not quite yet, because we've only got a couple of tones. You need 3 tonal values in order for it to be three-dimensional, so keep that in mind. Now I'm going to, again, shape out the area around the apples a little bit. And I think I'm going to bring that bottom down just a little bit more. Okay, and that's not as dark as it goes, because I don't want it being that dark on this side. The darkest dark, oddly enough, goes on the side where the light is coming from. Weird, the light's coming from over here, it's shining on here. But for some reason, the dark, and what I've got on here is alizarin crimson and dioxazine purple. And so it's very dark, and then I'm going to shape it out a little bit. I'm not going to leave it this sharp. When I paint in the background, because it's oil, I can blend it out and make it much, much looser. And I'm going to give this a little more of a shape that's curved at the top. Okay, now here's the fun part. I'm going to take some phthalo turquoise and white. Now, because I know that the light will come through here and come out over here in the glass. I can't really see that in my jar because it's so dark and there's so many lights in here, but I know that I know that to be true. So I paint what I know, not just what I see, all right? I paint what I know, and you have to learn these things to start with. So here's where the light might come out, right there. On the opposite to the light source, comes out there, and it comes out like that. And it comes out here. That sounds good. Okay, and then I'm also going to put one where the light is going to hit. It's not really a highlight, it's a bit of a light that hits on the jar. And I'm going to take it back and forth and soften it into that dark section right there. One of the main ways that you can learn how to do this, not only do you have the understanding that the light goes through and comes out here, but you also need to shine a light on a jar or put it in a window and really, really look at it. All right, that's how I learned, a lot of how I learned. I learned by observation. We can learn so much by really looking at something. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. When the light comes out, you don't have a highlight on the edge of the jar. You have it where the light hits in line with where it sticks out, or what we call the apex and the convex of the shape. The convex where it goes in and the apex where it comes out will have the most light right here. And I'll re-emphasize that as well. And on top of that, I'm going to go back in and take my ultramarine blue, and I'm going to create a bit of a sense that there's a bottom on this jar just by darkening it a little bit. I don't have a lot of space where that is because I've got this little apple going, which is at an angle. I'm going to make it at an angle. I'm going to take the Hansa yellow, and I am going to now come in here and put this on like this. All right, I'm going to swirl this around, and knowing I've got a little bit of blue on my brush, I just wiped my brush off. I didn't really clean it on purpose because I wanted a little bit of a muted color underneath to create the illusion of a bit of a shadow, all right? Why? Because then the highlights will begin to show up a little bit. Now I'm also going to take a little bit of my purple combination, just a little bit on my brush. It looks a little bit, it's going to be a little bit brownish, and I'm going to darken up the bottom, and it will look like a shadow. I picked up a little bit of the shadow underneath, wipe off my brush, and then I'm going to take the little corner of the chisel, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a darkened area here. Let's give it a little more of the purple and blue combination, right like this. It almost looks like a lemon at this stage. That's okay. We'll fix it. And we give it a little belly button. All right. I think I'm going to do the same thing to this apple over here. Oh, we first need to base that in a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get it. And this apple, I'm going to be using the alizarin crimson to start with. That's a beautiful color. Loose, loose, loose. Alizarin crimson. And I'm not worried about all the little details at this stage. I'm just putting the alizarin crimson in. And then I'm going to grab some, I'll wipe off my brush, and I'm going to grab some of the permanent orange. Permanent orange, that's the opaque, meaning I can't see through it, orange, rather than white to lighten it up and put a little highlight on there, or a light part on it. Why? Because it turns out pink. We don't want pink as a highlight. We want kind of something else. And so it just warms it up, and I think about the shape going this way a little bit. And then I see that there's a light coming out right there. Ooh, isn't that glowy? Really is glowing. I love it. And there's a little bit down here like that. Again, let's not get so carried away and get out our tiny 2 hairs and some airbrush and ruin a nice loose feel. A little bit more orange right here. And I think I'll shape it up just a little bit more that way. I don't want it to look like a hairy apple either. Oh well. Okay, I'm seeing that there is a lot of a reddish color right here. So I've got that on my brush. It's a reddish orange color. And I'll pull that up and begin to shape the apple on the side that has a bit of coloration. You'll find apples just have, especially some of these greenish color apples will have a red side to them. I don't know the science behind that, but now I'm going to take a little bit of that alizarin crimson and enhance that over here a little bit. And you can see how this green just begins to liven up a little bit because it bounces off its complement. I'm going to now take some cadmium, I'm now going to take the Hansa yellow, take a touch of sap green, and mix a lot of white with it. And then I will give it a little bit of a lighter color right here. I think it needs to be a little greener. It could be a yellow apple. I have done them with a yellow apple before, so, you know, there's no mistakes. All right, now we'll go like this, put a little bit of green in there as it moves around. A little bit more green underneath like this back here. And here we go. Then I'm going to take my brush and just kind of move it in the opposite direction. We'll come back and do a little bit more of the highlight. Oh, in fact, I just want to do that right now. I'm going to take a little bit of that light yellow color and put it right here. And a little more right there. And I think I'll take that highlight and put it across there too. It's a little bit of a greenish yellow. Just don't mix it up all the time. Don't mix, and mix because it just turns into mud the more you mix it. Just lay it down and walk away if you can. Can't leave everything, but you can leave some things. Oops, I just hit yellow into our shadow. We don't want to contaminate that. Lay it down and walk away. All right, that's kind of neat. And then we'll worry about the stems and stuff in a little bit. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to take some of the quinacridone violet, which is a reddish violet, take a little bit of the phthalo turquoise, and I would like to make a white, a little bit more of a white kind of a background on here. First off, we better figure out where the edge of our table is. I'm going to actually put it up higher than it actually is because I don't like it that low. So we'll put our table and we'll have it just kind of come out like this and a little bit over here like that. Hopefully that's straight from where you're seated because I'm off to the side. That's all right. And now I'm going to take a lot of white and add a little bit of quinacridone violet and tiny bit of phthalo turquoise. I feel like it's more turquoise than violet, all right? So when you're messing around with it, try that. If it looks too purple, add more turquoise, more phthalo turquoise. I'll load my brush up, put a little bit of that medium on. Now here's how I'm gonna just shock the back of the vase and this apple. See how that just looks like a, it looks like white, but it really, what we're trying to make it look like is light. It looks like light. And oh, I gotta be careful. I need a shadow from this thing too. I want a shadow from the jar. So before I get too far, let's reverse the train a little bit. I forgot to put the shadow in from our jar, and I'm gonna use the dioxazine purple and the phthalo turquoise. Seems to be the combination of the day, and we'll extend a little bit of a shadow out from here in relationship to the vase. Vase is going to cast a bit of a shadow. In fact, it's going to be an interesting shadow because it's not a solid color, all right? It's a transparent or translucent vase. Actually, that background helps a little bit because it softens up the edges of the shadow. Now, because I put a teal, a little teal mark in there, I'm going to also, and I'm going to take the teal and I'm going to put it into the shadow. Because when you have a transparent object, it's going to cast a transparent shadow. Okay, transparent object casts a transparent shadow. Boom, boom, there you go. That's really pretty. And I will not just leave it like that. I'm going to do a little bit more. I want to put a little more of that turquoise right there and a little bit above there too. It just makes it much, much more yummy. All right, I'm going to back up a little bit, and now I'm going to give this a little more of a little darker color, a little more of the teal and the purple. There, that's a little better. Now I'm going to use the darker rendition of the quinacridone violet and the phthalo turquoise with just a touch of white, and we will create that as the transparent look behind and through the vase. All right, I'm going to stick it in the middle of there. It contrasts nicely with that little apple there. And you can see how that begins to make it appear as though it has a little bit of translucency. Add white, same combination. Now, I think I'm going to darken this up just a tad. It's a bit shocky. Not bad, but a little bit shocky. And then I will add some medium. And to separate these apples to where it feels as though a light is coming through, I'm going to put my chisel edge here, and then I'm going to bring a bit of light coming through there. I don't really feel that there's much light or much space between our apple, our green apple, and our jars, so I'll probably keep that connected. There. See how that tabletop is not all the same value. I want the value, meaning the light, middle, and the dark, to be different because I want the focus to be right here. Okay, I want it to be right dead center. I don't want your eye wandering over here going, oh, what's over here? Because there's nothing over there. There's nothing over there. So leave that in a little bit darker. This is the light side of the jar, so I'm going to give this a little bit of the darker kind of violet color, or violet teal, and maybe just a little bit of white as it comes up so that it doesn't look like it's alien to what's happening over here. It does need to look like it belongs to the same picture. I think we do need to add a little more of the whiter combination right about in here so that it makes sense on the other side. Good. Wow, that's looking pretty yummy. Now while I have my little light violet, I'm going to put a tiny highlight of light violet right here on the apple, and I'll get another round of light violet and put another little bit of a highlight right here. There. Lighten that up there. Feels like there's a little bit of yellow in that apple too, so I'm going to put some of our Hansa Yellow Deep in down here. That just made it much happier. Now I'll take what's called a Filbert brush. Hope that's a Filbert. And I'm going to go between, see this bright turquoise stripe and the dark stripe. I'm going to take it right in the middle of it and just wiggle it. It's just laying really flat on there, and I'm going to wiggle it together so that it looks like it's not a stripe. and I go on the edge of that shape and the edge of the reflective shape, and I just wiggle it back and forth very carefully. If I overdo it, I can always add more. Same thing here. So it doesn't look foreign. Now sometimes there's an outside line. Whoop, that really shines purple. I got to be careful. Now I got to straighten that out. Okay, that's good. Before we get too much further on, I want to put a little waterline in. So I'll take a alizarin crimson and a little bit of the ultramarine blue, and I don't want to put the waterline right where that line is. That would bump into it in a weird place. So do I go up or down? I think I'll go down just because. And I'm going to make an ellipse. Ellipse is just kind of a flattened circle in perspective. Try not to make it pointy on the end like that. Round it out. So round, round, round. Round and flat. You're flattening the circles like this, all right? Let's take a little bit of the phthalo turquoise, add lots of white. Yeah. And I'm going to lighten that up a little bit. Okay, everybody, that's all we're going to do for today. We're going to divide this particular painting into 2 videos, as it would just be a little bit too long for most of you to watch. So the first part we've just finished, and now we're going to go on to the second part. So stay tuned, and we'll get that one up and running very, very shortly. Thank you so much for watching. Be passionate about what you do, whether it's painting or anything else. And we will see you again next time. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.